So next I'm going to do the pattern for the skirt back. I'm going to need 2 of these. My seam allowance is going to be 1 inch off of the center back and a 1/2 inch off of the side seams. Plus I need some margin. So I am going to cut either 2 pieces of brown paper that are approximately 16 inches wide or 1 piece that's 32 inches wide so I need 1/2 inch seam allowance on the top plus margin, and I need 1.25 inches on the bottom plus margin. So the length of my paper will be approximately 24, 26, 28, 30, 32-ish inches. So 32 inches long by approximately 32 inches wide, or 2 pieces that are 32 by 16. So I cut my piece of brown paper and it's insanely curly. So I'm gonna go iron it. Okay, I have my piece of brown paper ironed, so it's much better behaved. For the time being, I'm just gonna move my pieces so that I don't accidentally do anything terrible. So I'll take my right and left skirt that I've already finished out from under here. I'm gonna need them, but I'm just gonna make sure that they're not under where I might accidentally cut them. So like I said, I'm gonna need 2 back pieces. So I'm gonna use 2 layers of brown paper. Sorry, it's gonna be annoying while you watch me deal with this. So I'm lining up a couple of my straight edges. Actually, I'll fold it later. I'll just use some weights for now to get the one side prepped. And then I know I need to double it. I'll just do it in a later phase of the process. So now I'm just kind of shuffling things around my table, much to Mr. Bean's dismay, as I am disturbing his window nap. Okay, so just getting things out of the way so that I can work with this. Okay, so I'm gonna want this more than 1 inch away from the edge. I'll put it 1.5 inches away from the edge. I need 1 inch seam allowance, but the edge of your paper is usually messed up. It's wrinkly, it's not straight, it often gets damaged. So you wanna be off the edge of your paper. So I'll be cutting the edge of my paper off for my final pattern. And then I'll make sure that I know where the edge is down here. And I'll bring this about 2 inches from the edge of my paper down here. So that's approximately where I'm gonna lay out my pattern. That looks bubbly. Okay. And then what do I need to check? So I have my 2 notches at center back. One is on the HBL, one is a 1/2 inch below the HBL. I'm gonna need that. I decided that my kick pleat is gonna be 2 inches above my knee. So I'm gonna want a notch for that so that I know where to sew my kick pleat. I have a notch at my HBL side seam, which is gonna match to my skirt. But I also have this gathering on this side. So I think I'm gonna put my control notches. I only need it on the side, the back skirt that sews to my left front skirt. but I'm just going to put it on both for now. So a 1/2 inch down from the edge of my dot paper, and then 2 inches above my HBL. And that is just to control this gathering in my side skirt. So this is, I'll put control. So just so that I know. And then my, it's probably easier to put my dot paper on top and match dot paper to dot paper. So I want to make sure that my skirts match from HBL to hem at the side seam here. And this one has gathering, so I'll have to use my other side to make sure that it matches from HBL to waist. So those need to line up. Okay, great. And then this should be the same on both sides. HBL to hem need to line up. So my front skirt and my back skirt should be the same length from HBL to hem. So just checking those things. Great. And the HBL to waist is only gonna match with the back on the left, or sorry, on the right front, because the left front has gathering. And so these are the control notches to control the left front gathering. Even though I only need it on the wearer's left back, right now I have it on both. If I put these notches only on the left back, then my 2 back pieces become RSU, right side up, because they are different. One has notches for the left and the other does not. So I just need to decide, am I going to RSU my left back, or am I going to put my notches on both sides? You could see how having control notches for the left on the right back could confuse someone. So that is an argument for making it RSU, right? So I just need you to understand what you're up to, so that you know how to communicate with your team someday when you're in charge of a bunch of people, and you can have the information to make good decisions. Okay, so I feel like I have everything I need. We were talking about potentially notching from HBL to hem to line up with the side front skirts, and I hadn't really made a decision about that yet. But now I see this knee level, that could be cool. So we could notch the front side skirts at knee level, and notch the back skirt at knee level at the side seam to help us line up from HBL to hem so that things don't stretch out. So I really like that idea. I don't want to notch at my kick pleat level because that could potentially cause people to flip things over. But I think I like this knee level. So I'm going to add those notches to my side front skirts. So for the length that I made my skirt, from hem to knee level is about 8.5. I'm going to move this so it is actually 8.5, just because that's easy. Actually, I don't even have to do that. Yes, I do. 8.5. And I just want to make sure that there isn't a notch that's 8.5 from the top. So my HBL notches are less than 8.5, and all of notches are less than 8.5, because if there was something that was 8.5 from this edge, it could potentially cause this to flip over, or someone to mistakenly flip it over. So now I can take my side front skirt and measure from the edge of my dot paper up 8.5 on the side seam, 8.5 on the side seam, and I can make a notch there to line up with my back skirt. And then I can also, on my side seam of my left front skirt, I can measure up from the dot paper 8.5 inches and make a notch there to line up with my back skirt. So now I have more information to help me sew this together. Okay. And the more I think about it, the more I think it's a good idea to make these back skirts RSU, but I still have time to decide. Because aside from that control notch for the left front skirt, everything else about this back skirt is going to be the same for the right and the left. So again, I'm just making sure I have enough space on my paper, and then I'll weigh this down. And then tape it down. Okay, so I have been adding 1.25 inch hem allowance, so I will do that to my back skirt. Oh, one thing I want to tell you to double check. On our back skirt drape, I had you have 1 inch that you folded back on your drape. So please right now, before you go any further and cause yourself more heartache, make sure that your HBL measurement is correct. So you can just measure your dress form and add 1/2 inch for ease, or check your HBL measurement on your block, but don't make this 2 inches bigger than it needs to be. So your HBL measurement with ease should be in the neighborhood of 10.5-ish inches. So 10, 10.25, 9 7/8, somewhere in that area. But if you're like 11.5, 12 inches, you need to go check and make sure that things are okay. So make sure that you're not adding an extra inch to your center back, making this not fit everything else. Okay, so I added my 1.25 hem allowance. Typically we put 1 inch down the center back for the zipper. It's really not necessary. 1/2 inch is enough, but because this sample that we're going to sew is the first one we're sewing, I'm going to put 1 inch down mine because it'll give me extra in case something is too small. Like I'm using that wool crepe, it really tends to shrink when you iron it. I'm going to do as much as I can to mitigate that, but having this inch seam allowance down the center back might save my butt. I can always trim off if I don't need the extra. Like if I decide to put binding around the zipper, then this inch is going to have to get trimmed off. Now, once I know things are going to fit, I would prefer to have 1/2 inch seam allowance down the center back. But like I said, because I want my life to go easy on my first sample that I'm making, I'm going to put 1 inch seam allowance down the center back. On my side seam, I'm going to put 1/2 inch seam allowance just like I did for my front skirts. And on my curve here, I just have to pivot my ruler. And then below the HBL, it should be pretty straight. Or it should be like 100% straight below the HBL. And then I have my waist curve. So I think I'll use a smaller ruler for that. So I find that the two sides of my rulers feel a little bit different in size. So when I put one side of my ruler up to the 1/2 inch seam allowance that I already drew, it seemed like it didn't match. And then when I flipped my ruler over, the other side seemed to be the same as my first ruler. I feel like the last little square on each side of the ruler, one seems like a fat eighth and one seems like a skinny eighth. So I'm following the seam shaping of my dart that I had folded shut with the dart excess going towards center when I trued it to the shape of my yoke. So that when I sew these darts shut, with the darts shut, this is going to make one smooth curve that's going to align with my back skirt yoke. Okay, so now I have my dot paper taped down to one layer of my brown. I have my seam allowance added to one layer of my brown. And I have 2 layers of brown. And I want to cut 2 skirts because I need 2 skirts cut out of fabric. So I'm going to go find a stapler around here somewhere. And I'm going to staple the 2 layers of brown paper together. Hopefully this one has staples in it. I don't want too many staples in case I need to take them out. Taking staples out is a little bit tedious and annoying, but I want enough staples that these pieces remain flat, and when I cut the two out at the same time, the two pieces are symmetrical and the papers aren't shifting against each other as I cut. So a few staples, not too many. Similar to like pinning, right? When you pin your fabric. Enough pins to make sure that everything stays aligned. For alignment purposes, a ton of staples are nice, but efficiency is better so that you don't have too many staples, because, you know, it's also annoying to go buy staples if you run out. Okay, so I have my 2 layers of brown paper now stapled together, so they won't shift when I cut. Right? So now I'm going to cut out 2 back skirts at once. Again, this skirt is straight, so I don't need to worry about seam shaping at the hem. Like, I see my sleeve here. So when I did the dot paper draft of the sleeve, I did the hem, and you see how, because the sleeve underarm seam is, when I folded the hem up and cut it out, the hem seam angle. So I'm not going to have that issue with the skirts because they're straight. So I don't need to worry about it. And seam shaping is the same kind of thing that happens with the dart. You fold it so that when you cut it out and sew the dart, that edge looks like your style line. And it's not short of fabric, and it doesn't have too much fabric. The dart edges, the whole top waist lines up the way it should. So that's what seam shaping is. It also helps, you'll see when you go to sew it, if things are shaped the right way, then when you go to sew them and press them, the shapes just fit together, and it makes life so much easier. Like, it just gives you confidence that you're putting it together the right way. Whereas when the shapes fight each other, you have to wonder, is this piece correct? Should I check something and make sure that everything is okay? So again, I didn't line my center back right up to the edge of my paper because the edge of my paper is a little funky, and I want my center back of my pattern piece to be gorgeous and crisp. So I like to cut with the thing that's important to me on the inside of my scissors. So I flipped my paper around so that I could get a better angle for viewing this as I cut it, so that it is more likely to come out to the correct shape. Okay, and I'll save this excess brown paper for something else. It's a good size for yokes and midriffs and facings and all kinds of things. So now let's do our notches on our back skirt. So we know that we need our dart notches. So I'll just extend my dart notch off of my dot paper to the edge of my brown paper. And then I have to locate that notcher again. She keeps disappearing on me. Okay. So I have my dart notches. Let's go ahead and do our punch holes. So as I've been saying every time we encounter a dart, I really will sew my dart to the vanishing point. So my dart will still be the same shape, right? On my block, I had a punch hole at the vanishing point. But if you remember sewing darts in 1A, you sew a ½ inch past the punch hole. So that is the one that I want to retain, the one that is a ½ inch up from the vanishing point. So that's the punch hole that I want. Oh, ye old awl isn't here again. I have to find her. My favorite awl is sneaking around this room somewhere. Oh, I guess it's an opportunity for me to show you this one. So this is my, not my cute little pattern making awl, but my big giant awl that I probably got at Harbor Freight or something on a deal. So I can use this to punch my punch holes, or I can use something like this screw punch. When I use this screw punch, I usually put something underneath it so that I don't drill a hole into my work surface. Somewhere around here I have a piece of like particle board that was like a piece of a shelf or something, but I am not seeing it. I think it's in a basket over there, but I'm not going to go over there and get it. And instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of like brown paper or manila paper, something super thick, because I got it from the paint section at Home Depot, and I'm just folding it into a bunch of layers. So I have like a really thick barrier between my my table and my punch. So I'm going to put that underneath my punch hole to protect my table. And then I have this screw punch. These are kind of expensive. You can use them on a lot of things. You can use them on leather and some other things. But I use it to punch holes for my darts. And the holes that they punch are really clean and beautiful. So you see how it scarred my little protector there, right? So I don't want it to scar my table, because then when I go to draft, my pencil gets stuck in the hole, and that's pretty aggravating. So one of the advantages of tracing my block is that I didn't have to measure those punch holes. They were right because I measured them before. So I've punched my punch holes, and my holes go through to both sides of my paper. Now I need to circle them in red. So I have to find my red pen, which is not over here. Oh, I think I heard it fall on the floor earlier. There she is. And then I need something with a nice round hole in it. So I can use my circle template from Fash 110, or I can use one of the holes in one of my rulers and just put it over my punch hole. So that hole looks like a little small. Let's see, does my, here, my very form curve, that hole looks kind of big. I'm Goldilocks of like circle templates right now. Let's see, I'm looking at my wall to see if I can see my circle template hanging up there, and I don't see it. Okay, let's try my L square. Okay, that I like. So usually I like a 1/4 inch circle. So when I use my circle template, I can pick the 1/4 inch circle, and all of my circles on all of my patterns are consistent. And I love that beauty. So here I'll use my L square. Oops. My red pen didn't seem to, there we go. So circle my punch hole in red on both sides of my pattern. So I circled it in red on my dot paper, and I'm going to flip it over because I have 2 layers of brown paper here, and I'm going to circle it in red on the other side too. So now I have my punch holes on both layers, and they're circled on both layers. Okay, and my notches are on both layers. So I always do all of my markings before I separate the 2 layers because it saves me time, but even more importantly, it's accurate. Whereas if I do them separately, they won't be as accurate. So I need my HBL notch. So I'll just extend that from my dot paper to the edge of my brown paper and go ahead and notch those. In center back, we always have a second notch that's a 1/2 inch away. So I'm just extending that to the edge of my brown paper. So 2 notches a 1/2 inch apart signify center back. So that's going to help me know to line these 2 pieces up to each other. This notch here is for my where my kick pleat's going to go. So this is going to tell me to start sewing my kick pleat right here. I have 1 inch seam allowance here. So when I put the seam allowance on my kick pleat, I need to think about that. Do I want 1 inch seam allowance on my kick pleat? No, probably not. Probably what I want to do is allowance to a 1/2 inch. So we'll revisit that when we get to that piece. And then on this side, 2 inches below my knee, no, 8 inches above the hem, approximately 2 inches at, or approximately at my knee, I had a notch to help me line up my front skirts to the sides, to my back skirt at the side seam, because this is a long distance to go without any matching notches, and things could become misaligned by the time you get from one of these points to the other. So this matching notch is a spot for us to check and make sure that things are aligning. And then I have my control notches to control the gathering. So I'll just extend those from my dot paper out to the edge of my brown paper. So now I need my hem notches and my vertical notches. So at my hem, I'll just extend a line for the bottom of my dot paper out to the edge of my brown and make a notch. On both sides, that looks crooked. Let me make sure that's 1 1/4 inch. I think my ruler got slid a little bit, so I want to make sure I have my notch in the right place. And then my vertical notches. So for my 1 inch center back seam allowance, I'll just extend. So if I end up trimming this center back seam allowance, like I was saying, because of my kick pleat, I'm going to have to re-notch these guys here. But this vertical notch will remain the same because this vertical notch is in line with my dot paper, which will not move. It signifies my sewing line. And that will stay in the same place, even if the size of my seam allowance changes. So there's my center back seam allowance notch. And now I'll do my side seam allowance notch at the waist, and my side seam allowance notch at the hem. Now, the front skirts that we did earlier, so this is cut too. So I have a label on this side already, but I need the same label on the other side. So HLL 845 Vogue 4045 size 8 cut 2. Now, is it cut 2? Or should I plug the notches on one of these sides, cut one, and one is, oh, I forgot to put the piece name. One is right back skirt and one is left back skirt. What do you think? What would be more confusing for you? To have these notches on both sides of the skirt, or to have them notched correctly so that the right and the left are different? Let's say that you decided that you want the side that's supposed to align to your left front skirt to be correct, and the side that aligns to your right front skirt to also be correct. So the only notch that's different really is this 1/2 inch notch right here. So all I'd have to do on the side of the skirt that matches to this is plug this 1/2 inch notch. So, and then I would change this from back skirt to right back skirt, and this side that would have the notch in it would be left back skirt. I think I'm going to leave it. And what I could do is put the other notch here. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. It's an extra notch that I don't need though. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it for now. So anyway, piece name back skirt. And this is size 8. And currently I'm deciding that I'm going to cut 2, and I'm just making both back skirts the same. And one of the back skirts has an extra notch that the left front skirt doesn't have. I'm cutting them out of self. And then I need my name. And the class. And the date. And the form number. And my reference number for the pattern that I traced. Oh, this was 801. So ref number 801. This one, I think I copied this one wrong too. I think that should be 801. Okay. And then grain line. I need a grain line on this piece. So the grain lines are usually 1 inch from the edge. That's like a nice, like standard good way to do it. So it's right in line with my vertical seam allowance notches for my center back here. So I think I'll measure 1 inch over in a few spots. And then draw my grain line. And and then draw my arrowheads. Use my smaller ruler for my arrowheads. It's just easier. Staple is in the way of where I want my arrowhead. So now I have my label, and I have my grain line, and I have my punch holes circled, and I have all of my notches, and I lined this up to my skirts, so I know that this piece is done, and I have 2 of them that are complete. So we're ready for the next piece of our pattern.